Joining us now, NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles and New York Times White House correspondent and co-author of 2024, How Trump Retook the White House and the Democrats Lost America, Tyler Pager. All right, Ryan, how are these Musk tweets, the torrent of them, reverberating around Capitol Hill?
I would say it certainly complicates things for Republicans, Katie, that are trying to get this bill over the finish line. But I don't necessarily think that it's going to stop its forward momentum. I think there's a lot of Senate Republicans in particular where the bill currently lies, rolling their eyes a little bit at Musk's outburst, not taking it all that seriously. You have to keep in mind that Elon Musk was certainly popular here on Capitol Hill, but he was popular in part because of his close association with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump still rules the Republican caucuses in both the House and Senate on Capitol Hill. And they're still going to do what he says, regardless of what Elon Musk says. But it does complicate the situation because there are genuine concerns, particularly among conservative Republicans, that the bill does not cut enough. So when Musk brings this out into the light, when he talks about it, when he uses his powerful platform to raise that specific issue, that is going to make those deficit hawks like Ron Johnson and others concerned about the level of spending cuts and push for more. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump is the Republican that most of these senators are looking toward. Listen to what Josh Hawley told our Julie Sturkin earlier in the day.
I think it's Donald Trump as president, and I think at the end of the day, I mean, it's his administration. It always has been. So, listen, a lot of people have views on this bill, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more criticism and other concerns, et cetera, et cetera. And the Senate obviously has some work to do in the next few weeks. But, you know, it's the president's administration. I think he'll drive the train here.
It's his administration, and he will drive the train, Katie, and I think that is very important. If it's anything that we've learned over the Donald Trump era of politics, is that Republicans in Congress will do what he says. And even though Elon Musk has a very powerful voice in all of this, there's no reason to think that this process is going to play out any differently.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. But I do still think Elon Musk is a variable because, Tyler, as I'm sure you can tell us in more detail, he used to be on the Democrat side, and the flip toward Republicans and Donald Trump did a lot to damage Democrats, but also to help Donald Trump. Are they underestimating his power to flip again?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Elon Musk is going to go fully back onto the Democratic side, but it seems that Elon Musk is unshackled from being as closely associated with everything Donald Trump is doing. And as he said in one of those posts on his social media platform X, he couldn't stand it anymore. He couldn't be silent anymore. And I think it's important to note this is not the first time Elon Musk has disagreed with Donald Trump. Even while he was serving in the administration, he vocally disagreed with Donald Trump over tariffs and the sweeping tariff regime the president has put into place. And there's been some personnel disputes within the administration. Elon Musk has sparred with various cabinet officials. So what's unusual here is how vocal his criticism is and how frequent it is on social media. But I think it's clear that Elon Musk has fully enmeshed himself in Republican politics and is going to be a player. I think the question rippling around Washington is, what is he going to do next? He's obviously already promised to give Trump's super PACs and allied groups $100 million. My colleagues have reported that money has not fully been deposited yet. He's also saying that he's going to play in the midterms with some of these members of Congress who have gone along with this bill, and that's obviously going to cause some fear in the Republican conference. But I also think one of the powerful things that Elon Musk now has is this social media platform to air his criticisms and to rankle members of Congress and direct ire toward them. We saw that early in the Trump administration, where Elon was very vocal against critics of Trump and critics of him. And I think there's some trepidation that firing squad and that criticism could be directed at individual members of Congress. And that is causing some fear as well.
Well, he's actually tweeting right now, or Xing right now. He says a new spending bill should be drafted that doesn't massively grow the deficit and increase the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. That's from 6 minutes ago. Apparently, he's still going. So he's still very much beating this drum. I mean, he posted a ton last night. I just wonder, his mercurial nature, Tyler. I mean, the thing that set him off against Democrats, according to reporting from the New York Times, really good detailed reporting from the New York Times, appeared to be a slight from the Biden administration, a slight about Biden inviting a number of car makers to the White House to celebrate electric vehicles and not inviting Elon Musk. And Elon Musk took that very personally. And that's what started this change toward, screw the Democrats. I'm gonna support Donald Trump. And it's only a pretty recent change, only in the past few years. So I wonder, is he still that mercurial? Why are you still so confident that he is embedded within the Republican cause?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things in this whole drama that's playing out is we've heard very little from Donald Trump. And that is a marked change from when other people criticize Donald Trump. We hear from him pretty immediately and regularly. Now, we're supposed to hear from Donald Trump potentially later today when he's signing declarations in the Oval Office. And so that may be a first opportunity for reporters to press him on this. But Elon Musk has raised concerns earlier before he had that sweet, send off that Trump posed it as a sweet send-off for Elon Musk in the Oval Office. And Trump, when was asked about Elon's criticism of the bill that he made in a CBS interview, and Trump sort of dismissed it and didn't engage with the question. So it's noteworthy here that Trump is not piling on the criticism or fighting back with Elon Musk. And I think that is part of that, Katie, as you're saying, the mercurial nature of Elon is that Trump is very clearly not wanting to get in a tit-for-tat fight with the world's wealthiest man. He appreciates the support, and Republicans are very cognizant that Elon's money in the 2024 election was hugely influential and very helpful for Trump's ultimate victory. So I think Trump understands that Elon disagrees with him on certain issues, but at the same time does not want to alienate him because, as you said, he has a mercurial nature and he has a lot of money and he can deploy that in ways that could be unhelpful to Trump and the broader political movement.
Yeah, and I just want to make this point that what we're seeing is not entirely the most confident White House, the one that we've seen in the past. Obviously, we're not seeing Donald Trump go after Elon Musk, but we're seeing Stephen Miller, just post repeatedly online about how great this bill is, how MAGA this bill is, how it's going to save Western civilization. That is a man going on the defensive to push back against maybe a growing idea that this is not such a great bill. And we're also seeing some pushback. And I know, Ryan, you say this will eventually get there, but it is still interesting to see pushback from very Trumpy Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Again, this is never not going to surprise me. I know it's standard for Congress, but I think that it's still surprising to Americans to learn that their representatives don't read bills. Yes, they get them very late, but these are self-imposed deadlines, and they could band together and say, we need more time to make sure that everything in this bill is something that I'm aligned with. Marjorie Taylor Greene openly admitting that she didn't read it. She missed a key part about states' rights and states' ability to regulate AI. Mike Flood of Nebraska said the same thing when he was at a town hall about a provision in there that said it would limit the court's ability to hold people in contempt. Brian, it's still such a big deal to hear your representative say, oh, my gosh, I didn't read the thing that I said, yes, should be signed into law.
And what's even more remarkable about that, Katie, is that it was House Republicans in particular that whined about that, just out of control whining about it during the Biden administration. You recall the two big pieces of legislation that President Biden pushed through under reconciliation, the CARES Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. Those were all massive bills that had a lot of reading attached to them, and they were passed relatively quickly once they got agreement on some of the finer points. And Republicans argued over and over again that there wasn't enough time to read these bills. There wasn't enough time to process them. They should be going through regular order, that all these different committees should be marking them up and putting them out so that the American people can see them. So here they are in a very similar situation, a 1,000-page bill that has all these different elements attached to it, many of which have nothing to do with each other, but yet are all packed into this one package because Donald Trump wants to get every single agenda item done in one fell swoop because he doesn't trust the idea of breaking them apart, that he'd be able to accomplish them. We're talking about a big increase in funding to fund his mass deportation program, along with a package to extend his tax cuts. Those two things don't have anything to do with each other legislatively, but they know they have to do it all in one big package. This is something that Republicans claimed they weren't going to do anymore, and yet we're still doing it in this version of Congress.